Murder. Ruthless, bloody murder. Coming up after the break.
When you're next on the block.
Oh, you can? Oh, thank you.
Good old Yellow Pages.
You're watching KYTV.
Murder. Ruthless, bloody murder. Welcome back. But was the real murderer ever caught? Has the wrong man been in prison for the last 17 years? In a shock report, Hot Crimes investigates a possible miscarriage of justice. And viewers are warned that it does include a particularly grisly and shocking recreation of the murder. So you might like to phone your neighbours and let them know that it's coming up.
17 years ago today, and in this very street, a crime took place to throw the entire British judicial system into a tangled web of contortion, which to this very day remains unfathomed. Our story begins at the Red Fox pub in North London on the night of February the 14th, 1978. It was here that a murder was committed. A murder for which a man was sent to prison. A man who we believe should not be in a cell because he is innocent. This man is Johnny Sargent. On the 14th of February, he went to the Red Fox pub to meet a man as a result of a phone call he'd received from a woman that morning at home. The phone call had clearly startled Johnny. But who was this mystery caller? What made her call him at home? And did she just call him on a whim? To try and glean something of the events surrounding the situation of the circumstances, we decided to ask one or two of Johnny's neighbours what sort of man he was. So.
A very generous man.
Shy, sort of reserved.
Bit mean, tight-fisted, you know.
Not very outgoing. Extrovert, really.
So, a mean, generous, shy extrovert. A clear picture was beginning to surface, obviously. Or was it? February the 12th, 1978, 2 days before the murder. Britain was in the grip of an Arctic winter. President Nixon had resigned after the Watergate scandal, and David Essex was at #1 with Hold Me Close. So what exactly was it like to have a #1 hit? David.
He's great.
Hot Crimes. 2 days later, February the 14th, the day of the murder, the Red Fox pub. We've reconstructed the events of that day using the evidence of Colin Blaine, who has only now decided to speak out.
Johnny Sargent was on the table next to me. He was sitting with 2 other men.
How you doing, Johnny?
As you can hear, one of the men had a Geordie accent, while the other one appeared to be Welsh.
So, do you want another pint, then?
Perhaps we could just hear those accents again.
How you doing, Johnny?
So, do you want another pint, then?
Astonishingly bad, weren't they? So, Colin, what else did you notice about these men?
Well, something the second man said made me think that the first man might be called Ted.
So what did he say?
All right, Ted?
Yes, that would be a fairly strong pointer, wouldn't it? Anything else?
Well, something the first man said made me think he might recently have come back from a caravan holiday in the West Country.
I've recently come back from a caravan in the West Country.
Shortly afterwards, I noticed another man come into the pub, and I recognised him immediately as the murdered man who appeared in the papers the next day.
Yes, I think there might be a bit of the benefits of hindsight in that. What happened then?
Well, Ted and the other man immediately got up and started talking to him.
What did they say?
Nothing particular. Much the same sort of thing they'd said before, really.
All right, Ted?
I've recently come back from a caravan.
Well then, all of a sudden they started arguing and Johnny walked out. And like it all seemed to happen in slow motion. But I distinctly remember the one called Ted taking out a knife. Can't remember what happened after that. Anyway, the next thing I knew, Harry Lockett was lying on the floor with a knife in him.
Those events took place over 14 years ago. But Colin Blaine remains convinced that Johnny Sargent took no part in the murder that night. Nevertheless, within an hour, Johnny Sargent had been rounded up, bundled into a police car, searched, stripped naked, let out of the police car, and then arrested for indecent exposure. Here is a transcript of the very conversation that took place that very night in this actual room. Officer, what is your name? Suspect, Johnny Sargent. Officer, Johnny what? Suspect, Sergeant. Officer, yes. Suspect, no, I'm Sergeant. Officer, you're not a sergeant, you're a criminal. At this point, a police constable in attendance interrupted. No, his name's Johnny Sargent. Officer, I know his name's Johnny. I'm trying to find out his surname. Constable, that is his surname. Officer, his surname's Johnny. Constable, no, Sergeant. Officer, well, make your bloody mind up. Constable, I think we should start again. Officer, okay, name. Suspect, Johnny Sargent. Officer, I can see we're getting nowhere. So what led the police to Johnny Sargent in the first place? Firstly, he already had a record. 3 months earlier, police had arrested him in central London on suspicion of being Irish. Secondly, there was forensic evidence supplied by police experts after fingerprint tests showed a trace of calcium manganate under his fingernails, which was also present on the knife handle.
Calcium manganate is an extremely rare chemical, and the chance of someone else in addition to Johnny Sargent having it on his hands is 1 in several million.
I understand it still exists in certain synthetic substances, such as floor polish.
Yes, occasionally it is found in such substances, but quite rare.
And also nail varnish in certain soaps.
It is sometimes, yes, found in cosmetic products of that sort, yes.
And also food packaging, the backs of playing cards, and certain domestic handles.
That has been proved, I believe, yes.
Along with clothing, cars, paint, plastics, and wooden and man-made products.
Well, yes.
So that would appear to completely negate your argument, would it not?
In what way?